Well, kinda. Not exactly you shouldn't eat them in Japan, but rather have second thoughts about it. Recently, the weather has been erratic in Japan and kinda limited us from filming outdoors. And I was browsing the local Japanese news one day and I saw something that literally blew my mind. This is not due to any safety concerns or anything like that, so what could go wrong? What's with the title and all of that? And especially since the yen is really cheap now. Or is it? I mean, almost everywhere right now on international news and social media, everyone is blasting the yen is really cheap. It is being reported so much as if it is on the same level as AI's coming of age moment. And I wouldn't blame you if you happened to think that way, since even the Big Mac Index, an indication of food prices based on burgers, ranks Japan as one of the lowest on its charts, and agree that food is cheap in Japan right now. But what are the actual prices on the grounds at the market? Is it really that cheap? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Which is why you cannot eat this right now. What? What's this blasphemous thing I'm spitting right here? That's what you're probably wondering. Calm down, trust me, let me cook. I'm about to shock your socks off. Yes, the salmon sushi. You should not eat salmon sushi in Japan right now. Not right now anyway. In Japan, it's a well-known fact that these are the 4 heavenly kings of sushi. The salmon, maguro tuna, chutoro medium fatty tuna, and the hamachi amberjack. Besides being the most ate due to its price and affordability, you can also literally find those 4 sushi at any place selling sushi here in Japan. And among the 4 sushi kings, salmon sushi usually has always been priced the cheapest. These 4 sushi have been guarding the sushi realm of Japan for ages. But with a snap of a finger, faster than a lunar eclipse, here in 2024, it is reported in the month of May, the price of salmon sushi literally skyrocketed 184%. Unbelievable, making it the most expensive sushi king out of the 4. And if this persists, you could be very well be witnessing a changing of the guard moment for the sushi kings of Japan. To be frank, it is not just salmon sushi. For a while now, especially since 2023, Japan has experienced some of the biggest price hikes across board in their history. And here in 2024, we've already witnessed some very explosive ones and several soon-to-bes. The first on the list is, oh boy, you will not believe what you're about to hear. Cabbages. Yep, that's right. This iconic ball of greens is found in many famous and iconic Japanese dishes, from gyoza. Ah yes, we too recently started our Gyoza Adventure series, where we look for 7 legendary gyozas that make Japan. Do check that one out. To okonomiyaki, to yakisoba, and many others. Cabbages are an essential ingredient in those dishes. Now, this is an unique case because the price hike wasn't really due to inflation, but rather due to poor harvesting from erratic weather conditions. Cabbages at one point in April actually managed to hit 1,000 yen per cabbage. Woo! Mind blown! Now, besides the weather, such prices were possible because it's a little unique here in Japan. As cabbages, they're not priced in terms of their weight, but rather how ideal the size of the cabbage could get. Hence, such a situation actually managed to occur. Prices have since dropped, but still remained higher than usual. Second, Japanese snacks. I'm sad to report that the good old days of cheap and delicious awesome Japanese snacks may finally be over. Snacks like Calbee prawn crackers, jaggery and potato chips, or even your Meiji chocolate bars have all increased their prices on average from 3% to 33% across the board. Number 3 on the list, beverages. Come October 2024, expect to pay more for your favorite Japanese drinks. Major beverage companies in Japan like Suntory, Coca-Cola, and Itoen have all announced price hikes on their 500ml bottled drinks. Some notable ones includes a bottle of 500ml Coke will now cost 180 yen, up from 160 yen previously. The iconic Craft Boss Black Coffee will also experience an increase from 180 yen to 200. And the iconic Suntory Tenensui Mineral Water, the 2-liter variant, will have a 10% increase from 300 yen to 330 yen. Whoever said things are cheap out here in Japan? Fourth, we have flour, or whatever you want to call it. Experts have already forecasted in the coming months the price of flour will increase. This will most inevitably mean the price of your favorite confectionery, baking, pastry items, and even noodles. Oh no, my ramen would very likely experience a price increase. Lastly, electricity and gas. I deliberated whether to add this to our list, but since it directly impacts the food we eat in Japan, so I guess, why not? Coming this July 2024, due to the end of state subsidies, electricity and gas in Japan is set for a heavy increase. You can expect your ramen, sushi, tempura, all of that to be a lot more expensive in the coming months. And if you don't, everyone, we should really appreciate those shops and establishments who refuse to increase prices. I just remembered, this will also mean hotels and lodgings in Japan are going to get even more expensive. Now, to put this into clearer perspective with our salmon sushi, the price of it actually almost managed to match an Otoro sushi from Sushiro at 360 yen, or even uni gunkan at any regular sushi shops. And all of those sushis are considered to be premium. Just unbelievable if you ask me. Now, as to why this happened, depending on whether you know about this prior, I might be able to shock you one more time. Did you know that majority of the salmon sushi and sashimi you have eaten in Japan, the salmon fish you ate, does not come from Japan? Mind blown! No! 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 This probably came as a shock, given how much seafood as a whole is synonymous to Japan, and naturally, you might think, the sushi, the sashimis, and the tempuras, the seafood in them are caught in the seas of Japan. For example, tuna. Yes, they are caught fresh from the coastal seas of Japan and be paraded at the market for sale every single day. However, not so for salmon. Most of Japan's salmon fish that is eaten raw is not from the seas of Japan, but rather from Norway. And due to various and current world situation right now, this has led to a dramatic increase in export prices. Hence, we are left with this situation on our hands right now. And local news have reported that various sushi restaurants have since sought salmon from other countries for cheaper alternatives. We went down to the local supermarket for ourselves to see how all these are playing out. And we actually did notice a rather noticeable increase in the price of salmon. According to local Japanese news, since 2021, there has been a rapid increase in the price of salmon. The price of 1 kg of salmon ballooned from 730 yen to 1,750 yen. That's a whopping 239%. GG.com guys, GG. We actually managed to find a comparison here. We have 2 mini platter of sushi, 2 different combinations, differing at the number of tuna pieces you get. One, you have 3 pieces of akami tuna sushi, and over here we have 3 pieces of salmon sushi. But look at the price. It is exactly the same. If you asked me a couple of years ago, would such a thing happen? I would have told you impossible. Arienai. We did a lot more digging to investigate this further and found that in 2023 last year, a 2-piece regular salmon sushi in Japan, on average, the price was around 220 yen. Comparing that to this year, the highest ever recorded price was 350 yen. Oh my goodness! Almost 100% increase! Now then, the biggest question would be, are there any salmon fish that are made in Japan, if any? The answer is yes! This Japanese salmon. This is called sake. Sake, not to be confused with alcoholic beverage, it's actually referring to salmon from Japan. Whereas your Norwegian salmon or Atlantic salmon, you will see these katakana characters instead.
Now, besides the name, are there any other way to distinguish the both of them? If recognizing Japanese characters is not your thing, there is one ultimate way. The moment you see a raw and fresh salmon fish on your plate, you can automatically rule sake out. This is because in Japan, sake is never and cannot be eaten raw due to the potential presence of parasites. It has to be cooked before eaten. So, you will never see a sake sushi unless the sake is cooked in some way, or even a sake sashimi. Besides cooking and eating it as a single piece, in Japan, one other popular way of eating sake is actually sake flakes. You can find those cooked sake flakes very commonly in popular foods such as onigiris and bentos. And in general, sake is cheaper than Norwegian salmon for obvious reasons such as the lack of export cost. Now then, what about the taste? Are there any differences between salmon from Norway and salmon from Japan? Let's do a taste test. Honestly speaking, yes, the difference is pronounced enough. The first thing I actually noticed was the flesh, the meat of the sake. The color of it, the orange color, is actually not as saturated and look more pale as compared to a Norwegian salmon. Taste-wise, yes, the difference could be tasted. The Norwegian salmon is way more oily than sake. The sake flesh was a lot more dry. So much so that I could actually taste the individual strains of fish meat for the sake. Whereas for a regular salmon, a lot more mushed up due to the amount of fish oil. This I feel is the most significant in terms of the difference in taste. Pretty interesting. Likewise for an onigiri also, I could distinctly taste and recognize the trademark dryness of a sake salmon. One interesting fact about the Norwegian salmon and sake fish is there are actually not many people who know the difference between the two, especially tourists and non-locals here in Japan. Most actually recognize it's a salmon fish due to the image of the salmon. And unfortunately, for the sake of easy understanding, both are actually lumped together as the same. However, they are different. In Japan, most places actually do not cook or grill Norwegian salmon, as it could be eaten raw. It is flame torched at most to make your salmon arboris. And it is considered wasteful to cook or grill them, since sake has to be cooked, and sake is cheaper than Norwegian salmon. But now, you know the difference between the two. We got you here at Oishi Apron, your number one stop for Japanese food on YouTube. Do consider subscribing to the channel and help us reach 500 subscribers. Enough with the shameless plug, let's get back to the video. There is also another reason why the price of salmon sushi has gone up. Well, not just salmon sushi, but across board all sushis and include many other Japanese food favorites such as your bentos, your donburis and many others. Why, you may ask? Well, that's because it involves the other major component of a sushi. Yep, you guessed it, the rice. The price of Japanese rice has increased steadily over the years, and especially this year, a 5 kg bag of Japanese rice actually managed to cross the 2,000 yen threshold. And given that the weather this year in Japan has been pretty erratic, rice farmers have been struggling to grow rice crops. No doubt about it. Looks like the price of rice will increase further this year. Oh my goodness. So if you think that you're going to get a wholesale discount in your upcoming trip to Japan, hold up, that is not going to happen. That is because the Japanese market now is adapting at a faster rate. I mean, things are still generally cheaper in comparison to back then. And that's when the yen wasn't so much in our favor. But judging from recent trends, the Japanese market will continue to adapt and will continue to correct itself further. The prices are probably going to keep increasing. And that's because the demand is high from all the tourism. And also, another influx of visitors is right around the corner, as the World Expo 2025 will be held in Osaka. That's going to be one major international event in Japan. At this point in time, if you think that our salmon sushi inflation nightmare is about to end, sure sounds like our video is ending soon. I'm sorry to tell you, it does not. There is one other major component of the sushi that has dramatically increased in price. This type of sushi in particular. Yes, of all things, the seaweed. Due to pretty strange climate conditions in Japan, a Apparently, it is pretty difficult to farm seaweed right now. Prices of seaweed products has since risen at least 10%, and the seaweed component in a dish, the cost, has at least doubled. Fans of gunkan sushis and onigiris, I'm sorry to say, but things are going to get a little more expensive. At your major conveyor belt sushi restaurants like Sushiro, you probably may not see the difference in price, or maybe even at supermarkets. You may see a subtle increase, but for sure, at smaller establishments and other sushi restaurants, the price increase was noticeable for salmon-related items. And now we know why. A pretty doom and gloom type of video, don't you think? But an informative one. Given how cheap the yen is right now, it is good to know how much food your yen can buy you. And especially to avoid being scammed. I guess this is good information. And to those who intend to travel to Japan soon, this information will definitely help you to plan your travel expenses better. And to those who intend to move to Japan, I guess things are not as rosy as advertised, isn't it? Well, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching.